an honor and a privilege to stand before you and to help out in the ministry here. As I shared with you before, I am a teacher. And when I hear sermons, I'm usually asking myself, what can I do with that as a teacher? And it's just that I'm a teacher. And preachers are supposed to be teachers and preachers. But my basic calling is teaching. I think like a teacher. I never realized it, never acknowledged it until a few years ago, because I'm always analyzing, I'm always looking at things like a teacher. And my former pastor, not Pastor Prem, but before him, shared with me, he said, Roy, you're a teacher. He said, I finally acknowledge you're a teacher. And I look at life as a teacher, what can be done. And I saw something the other week where a young man, less than 20, I believe it was, I think a $2 million bond on his head. And then the other young man down there who took the lives of some of the people at the church. With arrogance, perhaps, I said, I wished I could have gotten to him. That's what a teacher does. A good teacher always feels like they could do something. Not be perfect. Our Father, as we come before you this morning, we give you thanks for your goodness to us. Thank you for the privilege of being able to say something in your behalf for the people of God. And Lord, we pray that the people will know that when we speak to them, we're speaking to ourselves. Every preacher is preaching to himself. We ask blessings upon what is said, that some person, young or old, may be blessed, is our prayer today. In Jesus' name. I have chosen to bring to you what I believe God wanted me to do, because my mind was going in another direction. And I really was interested in another direction. And somehow this kept coming. And my wife asked me the other day, she said, how are you coming? I said, I'm not coming. I said, I'm struggling right now. And she knew that was unusual for me because I usually have a lot to say. But I want to share with you something that is a problem with all of us, young and old. I don't care who you are. Preachers have to preach balanced sermons over a year's time. They have to preach some sermons that help young people. They have to preach some sermons that help middle-aged people. And even though you see all of us gray-haired people walking around, we have to have some sermons that get to us. Because we come into this church knowing that all of us sitting here are going to slip out of here one day, and there's going to be a judgment based on the book. We're going to stand before him. So even though we laugh, and I'm like Brother Kofi, I like to have fun, but there's a serious side to me. I'm very serious about spiritual things. We can play with it, but it's not playing time when it comes to this kind of thing. I'm going to slip out of here and stand before God. And God himself, way back over in the Old Testament, told the people he's going to drop a plumb line down. And for those of you who are not familiar with a plumb line, it's a line that is dropped so that the man that's building this building can keep it straight. I'm not going to be able, when I stand before God, and change definitions as the postmodern people are doing, change definitions on things. I'm not going to be able to say I didn't have sex with that woman based on my definition of it. That's postmodern thinking. It'll take me to hell fast. Take me to hell not only afterlife, but take me to hell in this life. So I'm aware all the time that I'm going to stand before God for what I've said, for what I've lived, for what I practice. It's not time to play games with God. So I want to read something to you. One man said we don't read the Bible long enough. We so quick want to tell about it instead of letting the Spirit talk to us. I want you to turn to Genesis 39. Be patient with me. I'm reading from the New King James. I'm not sure which one Sister Robin has up there, but I hope you can follow me. I'll tell you what I'm going to talk about in a moment. 39, verse 1. I'm going to read to the 23rd verse. So I know it's a little lengthy, but just be patient with us today. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord, notice that his master even saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put in under his authority. So it was from the time that he had made him overseer of his house, and all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast longing eyes on Joseph, and she said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand." If I had a parenthesis there, I would have put, "and now I can have you." There is no greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? So it was as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not heed her to lie with her or to be with her. But it happened about this time, when Joseph went into the house to do his work, none of the men of the house was inside, that she caught him by the garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. And so it was, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, that she called to the men of her house and spoke to them, saying, "See, he has brought in to us a Hebrew to mock us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And it happened, when he had heard that I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled and went outside. So she kept his garment with her until his master came home. Then she spoke to him with words like these, saying, 'The Hebrew servant whom you brought to us came in to me to mock me.' So it happened, as I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled outside. So it was, when his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him, saying, 'Your servant did to me after this manner,' that his anger was aroused. Then Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, it was his doing. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. I want to lift from that something that I think will help every generation, every age. I want to speak to you from the subject, help in overcoming temptations. Help in overcoming temptations. What is temptation? It's a cause or an occasion of enticement. Now, there may be some of you sitting here that are so holy. You live in such rarefied air that you're not bothered at all about anything. Most people, or at least many people, come to Christ, and they are surprised when they find out the next day that they still have strong enticements to do wrong. Truth is, temptation is going to come and will be with us until we die. Now, Brother Pitts, you're saying you're 83 years of age, you still have temptations? It would have to be a 1-year-old would ask me that. In the house of Potiphar, the captain, the Egyptian guard, Joseph, Jacob's son, faced and conquered the temptations which he faced. Now, we could do this. I want you to read the whole story, because here's what sometimes we do. Sometimes we get to the point where we may say, well, you know, God helped Joseph. You know, Joseph, God did something with the situation whereby when he looked upon her, she didn't look as beautiful. But that's unscriptural. She did look beautiful. God does not change the natural circumstances of things. He was dealing with Joseph's own honesty, Joseph's own outlook, and still able to bring God's will out of it. But he's going to let you stay where you are, let you see what you see. So there's got to be some other avenue that helps me over. I want to pick up from this story some things that will help me and help you overcome temptation. Now, we can lie to ourselves and play like we don't have any temptation. We don't have any feelings. Nothing bothers me. Well, first thing I want to share with you is we must learn to acknowledge that temptations in themselves are not sin. We have to tell ourselves that. Otherwise, we'll get the idea when someone stands up here and says, man, I'm having temptations come from all kinds of directions. We kind of look at them funny. He must not be living right. Come on, give us a break. But if the enemy of our souls makes me believe that when I'm tempted, that something has gone wrong with me, he already has captured you. Jesus was tempted. But if the enemy of our souls makes me believe that just because I'm tempted and I start feeling bad about it, rather than realizing that as long as I'm in the flesh, As long as I'm in this flesh, there are going to be enticements that I have to deal with. And I've got to be honest with myself. Isaiah 1:18 says, "Come, let us reason together." What's he talking about? He's not doing this. You came in here and I had my eyes closed and had my hands like that. And you said, "Brother Pitts, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm trying to find out if that light's on." You would look at me like I'm insane, because you are aware that God did not put receptor cells in my hand to pick up light. So he said to me, "Come, let us reason together. Come, let us reason together." What's he talking about? He's talking about my mind. And where my mind is, my body will follow it. So something Joseph had to do in the story. Temptations are not wrong in themselves. They just lead you to wrong. C.S. Lewis makes a statement that I hope you can remember. He says this: "Evil too often is the pursuit of good in the wrong way." I'm going to give you something so you can remember that. Every woman sitting here that's past 10 remembers when the male of the species pursued her as a teen. He was pursuing something good, but most of the time it was in the wrong way. We can tell him, just don't worry about it. My son came to me one time and said, "Daddy, I can't seem to study." I said, "What do you mean you can't seem to study?" And he told me, he said, he's around 10th grade, I just keep watching these girls. And he said it as if he has a problem. I said, you don't have a problem. And I shared with him, I said, "Now, you start pursuing these boys, you got a problem." I said, you come talk to me. I didn't lie to him. I didn't tell him he's not made out of flesh. We got 3 of them. They're pretty balanced young men now. Never lied to them. Gave them the unadulterated truth. We're not immune from the enticement of things we desire. Turn to 1 John 2:16. Sister Robin is going to get it for us. There's 3 basic areas that we have trouble with. First John 2:16. All that's in the world is what? Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Anyone sitting here saying they're not enticed by anything, one of these areas is going to get you. I got to fight one of these areas every day of my life. What is the lust of the flesh? Cravings of the fleshly man. I'm a fleshly man. Passionate desires of the body. My body wants water every now and then. Body wants food every now and then. So I have to teach my children. You got to learn how to handle that in the right way. You got to learn how to solve it in the right way. Joseph had it right, man. Joseph solved it in the right way. Your problem may not be in his area, but I'll guarantee you we got some problems in other areas. Well, lust of the eyes, passionate desire of the soul through the eyes. A whole lot of us would be worse off, or would be better off if we couldn't see. If you couldn't see it. We have my brother was here, Brother Sam, and I always stood beside Sam in the choir, and before the choir would get started singing, sometimes I would tell Sam, I got a new car. He would say, describe it to me, Leroy, and I would tell him about it. Well, Sam had sight before he lost his sight, so he understood color and all that. But a man was born without color. He had no idea what you're talking about, color. But I could tell Sam, that a lady just went by. He said, describe her to me. If I told him how she's shaped and how she's built, Sam in his mind can picture that. He may picture it better than what I described and have a problem because of the lust of the eyes. I can't come up and tell someone that Joseph, Lord did something with Joseph's eyes so he wasn't seeing the woman right. Come on. I'm saying it that way because that's what we do with our children. We lie to our children. I was 8 years of age, and I saw the dogs in the neighborhood running after other dogs. My aunt told me to come in the house. I said, why do I need to come in the house? I wanted to see it. I had an uncle that wasn't saved, but he was wise. Most of my learning came from him. He shared with me, Roy, he said, that's a female dog, and they're trying to have fulfill their fleshly needs. He never lied to me. He'd even tell me when he didn't know. Nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. Had a lady named Sister Glover. She every now and then somebody says, she said, stop lying. The Bible is right. Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. The pride of life. The pride of life. Students come up to me all the time. Mr. Pitts, you were a wonderful teacher. You really know that, you know. I learned something from an older lady named Sister Ruth Ellis. Sister Nelson, all of them used to have prayer together. And I said, Sister Ellis, I wished I knew the Old Testament like you know. And she stopped me and taught me a lesson with it. She said, wait a minute, brother. She said, be careful saying that so much. She said, I could start believing that I'm all that. She said, I could start believing that I'm all that and get pompous in my attitude. Now, we understand. We appreciate nice words. Don't misunderstand. But I'm just saying pride of life is empty pride, boasting, and display of material things. You know? I want to let somebody know I got it. So much so until the wrong spirit is being held inside of me. Got to be careful. But it's easy to do. I've got to acknowledge that it's easy to do. You are the Josephs where you are, is what I'm saying today. What is your defense? You're either going to fall when enticements come or you're going to stand. What's your defense? If you don't have a defense, you're going to fall. If you haven't given some thought to what's going to happen, you're going to fall. Young people, things get tough in school. Susie knows all the algebra. If you don't have your mind made up, you're going to cheat on the test. You're going to be enticed to cheat. Then secondly, don't run with others who have the same enticement. If some man has decided to play on his wife, he's a danger. It's going to increase the likelihood of being enticed and yielding if he runs with other guys who believes that it's all right. I'm quiet, but I'm right. If George believes it's all right to shack up, he's worse off when he runs with other people who believe it's all right to shack up. I wash dishes. When my son comes in, he teased me. He said, "Dad, you washing dishes again?" I said, "Yeah, I'm washing dishes again." Now, what if I go around some men, a whole lot of guys who don't believe that men should ever wash dishes? If I'm not man enough to stand up for it, I'm going under. You're either going to stand or fall based on what you stand and what you believe. And your belief's supposed to be based on the book. Whole lot of time I didn't want to embarrass young people. They come in, "Mr. Pitts, could you write a letter of recommendation for me?" "Yes." "Sit down, have a seat." Now, you know, if I write a letter of recommendation for you, I'm going to tell them that you didn't do so good on such and such and such. Oh, okay. They want me to lie about it. This is my value system. Everywhere I go, not just here, everywhere I go. So every pastor I've had, I've invited him to my class when I was working. Reverend Beverly used to sit in the back of my class, walk the hall and talk to my students. I don't want to be one thing here and one thing something else. No. Because I'm aware, I was aware at 30, based on what the saints taught me, that they're going to push me in this box, and I'm going to stand before God for what I've done and what I've said. Adults, if I just shade the truth, I'm talking about adults. Man told me, said, if you fix a little place in your basement, you can get tax write-off on it. I said, but I don't use that for that. Well, you can do it. This hit me. Can't do it. But is the enticement there? Yes. Why? Because the playing ground isn't even. We already know we haven't been treated right. But I got to live by the book. When I stand before God, I'm going to stand there naked before him. And I want him to say, you did your level best to do it. Did I make some mistakes? Yes. But when I make the mistake, I want to fall toward him. Say, Lord, I tried. I get in trouble sometimes being honest. But I'd rather be in trouble with men being honest and stand before God clear. Because that's what's wrong with the church, is what I believe in my heart. I believe it. I believe there are some men today that walked away from families and left children stranded because they did not want to face the enticement of another woman. Yes, she looked good. She may have been a better cook than the one you got. But God's going to ask, did you try it? Did you try to be faithful? And the same thing is true for women. Did you try to be faithful? If my wife would have stayed with me only because I could fix something and repair something at the house, she would have been gone the first year. I could design this church. I got the skills almost like an architect, but I can't build. I never got the experience of building. started learning how to lay bricks a little bit with Brother Charles Scott. But I can design, I can draw up things. I can sit down and draw things from memory, my home and my friends' homes. And they look at it and say, Leroy, that's the way my house looked. But I don't know about building. But I'm a builder. I believe God granted me the builder of people. I told my wife, when I said, I promise you, if you stick with me, I'll get our children through high school. Because I've learned how to say as a man, based on the book, I'm sorry. I made a mistake, son. Got to be able to say it. I made a mistake. That's why I was floating on the cloud when Brother Heath said he had asked his children to forgive him. That's what it's all about, to be a real man. Well, I can't lie to myself. Older adults, you got to understand that we have an obligation to tell the young people. We got to tell the young people what? Tell them what? Well, here's what you got to tell them. I believe, based on the book, I believe God's going to get me if I dress and do anything I want to do, and the way I carry myself entices another woman or a woman to do wrong. So I got to teach them how a man thinks with his eyes, what he sees. I got to teach the men how a woman thinks about that. Because when I'm standing here preaching and some woman walks in that door a certain way, you can say what you want to say, but she'll take the preacher's message and get his mind all off the sermon. I'm telling the truth about it. She'll make most preachers forget his topic. God made us that way. It's the pursuit of good in the wrong way. Every now and then I feel like asking some woman, and I feel like asking some man, if that's what you're showing, is that all you got? I see everything you got. Nothing to be hid. I was in art school, Kansas City Art Institute. Had a black young lady, was the best model we had, and an older lady, Caucasian. Two best models we had. One older, one was young. And when they come in, they step on a little cloth, and they put their feet in a certain place, and over here they say, raise that hand, and they get back in the same position. I'm not telling you a fib. The young lady walk in with her bathrobe on, the little robe that she had. I wasn't married at the time. And not that it would have made any difference. But when she walked in with, clad, you understand? Walked in covered. It left to my imagination. It bothered me more than when she disrobed. When she disrobed, all of us sitting around that drawing wasn't thinking about anything except drawing her. I am telling you the unadulterated truth. We need to teach our young women. You don't have to show it all to get him to want you. God is displeased with it. And Joseph was looking at a woman that was fine, but he had to make a decision. I've got to hurry on. We had to make a decision. We got to have some options. We got to have some options, folks. We have to have some options. What are your options for handling temptation? Well, one of my options is don't be where you know you're going to be enticed. We had a brother named Brother Gamble. Never will forget Brother Gamble. And we had a pastor named Brother Young who was very serious, taught us serious about church matters. Brother Gamble had an alcohol problem. And he'd go out. Sometimes he'd be gone a month, come back, go out, come back, go back 2 months. And I remember something that Brother Young told him. Brother Young said, Brother Gamble, he said, the fear that I have is that you go out and Satan's going to catch you out there and not let you get back. We don't want that. We want people to get saved in this church. We don't want anyone going to hell from this church. We don't want anyone to point a boned finger, as Brother Young used to say, and say, you never told me. You never told me the truth. We don't want that here. That's what it's all about. We must understand the goal of temptation. Do I have 10 more minutes? We must understand the goal of temptation. Satan has clear goals. If you don't have any goals, Satan has some goals. His first goal, if you look at this, the Joseph story, look at what would have happened had Joseph yielded. Play it that way. Look at what would happen. Number one, he'd been out of place with God, but his influence has been hurt. I know I'm going to get in trouble now. Brother Cosby, I like your show, but you hurt us in the war. What war, Brother Pitts? We're in a war trying to help our young people. He was right when he told our young people, you need to learn English. You need to let Ebonics be a second. Go with English. He was right. Who? Cosby. But now he's tainted it. And in a war, you need every gun. You need every soldier. We lost a soldier, man. I've been praying for him because we've lost, I want to see what we can do to retrieve some of it. Because the guy has had some help. He's done some good. But now, young people look at it. Man, oh man, we lost a soldier. Hurts in the army. We got to know Satan's goals. Satan's goal is to destroy your influence. An army needs every soldier, every gun, every plane. My fraternity brothers, I belong to a fraternity called Alpha Phi Alpha. When they got it started, purely for education. Now the young people coming in are doing all kinds of things. Why? Because the young ones don't understand the influence. There was a time when you could say you're an alpha and it would ride anywhere. Andrew Young, and we could name them, just hundreds of them. And now they're doing all kinds of things. Influence is important. Some people can write their name behind something and it'll fly. That's what it's all about. Had Joseph caved in to the invitation of Potiphar's wife, the course of history could have changed. He understood the goal of temptation. And if you contrast him with David, look what happened. Whole generation problem. He wants to ruin your life. If you look at John 10:10, well, we'll go into 1 Peter 5:8. Here's an antidote to Satan. An antidote to Satan. He tells you to be sober. To be sober is to have a clear mind. You got to have a clear mind, man. And self-control. There's a movie called Patton, and Patton says something that I always like. I try to pick up on good points and let the bad points go. Man told him, said, Mr. General Patton, we don't know when you're play acting. He said, the men don't know when you're play acting. And Patton made a statement. He says, not for them to know when I'm play acting. It's for me to know. What's he saying as far as a leadership? Well, as far as leadership, my boys didn't have to know when I was afraid. It was for me to know when I was afraid if somebody was getting ready to come in the house and bother them. It was for me to know. They got older, they understood. I could tell them. Understand? So they could learn how to handle fear. But I've got to learn if you reject God's commands, if you begin to live only for yourself, you're helping Satan. Next, his methods. Look at the Joseph. Here's what you find. He's always deceiving. He is a master of deception. He never wants you to see the final results. Young people, the jive, I don't know what they call it nowadays, that's what we call it. The boys put down their jive, all their talk, he's gonna give you the moon. He's going to give you what he doesn't have. I told you the story about a friend of mine named Attorney Hatchett, gone on to glory now. A young man came over to date his daughter. I think I shared that with you one time. And while his daughter was getting ready, the young man was sitting there. So he asked me, he said, "Are you working?" The young man said, "No." And he asked him, "Are you looking for a job?" The young man said, "No." "You're in school?" "No." "Getting ready to go to school?" "No." So Hatchet asked him where he lived. He told him where he lived. So he said, "I got something for you to do." He said, "Come on, go with me." He said, "My daughter's not ready anyway." So he drove the ball over to his house. This is a true story. Drove him over to his house and reached across the young man, opened the door and said, "Son, you go on in the house and don't come back to my house anymore. Because there's nothing you can do for my daughter." Young people, young girls, young men, don't run with losers. Now, hear me good now. I may not be saying what you think I'm saying. I'm not saying that if he's dropped out of school, he's a loser. I'm not saying that. Because he may have plans to get back. When my wife met me, I wasn't a high school graduate. But I was a winner because I had accepted the Lord. And I was already on my way somewhere. That's what it's all about. I wouldn't spend 15 minutes unless I thought there was a possibility of changing them, of someone that they don't believe in church, don't want to go to church, all those kinds of things. The devil is a deceiver. For Joseph, he disguised the temptation. Watch this now. He disguised the temptation by repeating it every day. Every day she's tugging on him. He disguised it to make it look favorable, like a favorable opportunity. An opportunity to fall. Then he has misleading power. Satan always gives misleading information, misleading promises, what he's going to give you. And same thing happened with Jesus. Next, I want to just add this. With all the temptations that we have, then how are you going to win? How are you going to win? I would like for you to turn to Ephesians 6:13 to 18. I think that's the one I want. Can you get that up there? I think that's the one. We will see. Ephesians 6:13 says, "Therefore take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, above all taking the shield of faith with you, which you will be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one." In other words, he's saying to you, don't you try to fight the devil by yourself. There's no way in the world you can win fighting him by yourself. It has to be victory through Christ. And he solved the problem on the cross. Every believer has power from him. And I want to share with you as I wrap up, I want to share something with you that I try to simplify things, because most of the time we don't remember a lot of things, but I want to see if I can simplify it. If I write D, representing decisions, minus G, decisions minus God always equals T. You can take it to the book. Decisions minus God is always going to be trouble. And last, I want to introduce you to something that I don't know if you're familiar with or not. We have what we call systems. Open systems and closed systems. In order to whip Satan, you got to stay in an open system. Now let me share with you what we mean by open and closed. Let's suppose that everyone over here, you are a closed system. And when I come over and talk with you, you get ready to tell me something, and I walk away and don't hear anything you have to say. I'm closed to you. Over here, they get ready to talk to me. I listen to what they're saying, and we exchange information. This is this is an open system over here. Closed systems die. Open systems live. If the Star paper came in and interviewed someone over here and asked, "Did Mr. Pitts, you think Mr. Pitts robbed that bank last night?" Someone over here would say, "I think it's possible that he robbed it because that's just the way he is." Because they don't know anything about me. They're closed. You know, our relationship is closed. Over here, they ask someone over here, do you think he robbed the bank last night? Someone would say, "Well, he may have, but it doesn't seem like him. It doesn't seem like what we know about him." Because we're open. You must be open to God. If you're not open to God, and I'm not talking about play acting. I'm talking about you got to be open to God. And I want to share with you something that the Lord laid on my mind. He always deals with me based on what he's already let me understand. I was sitting there thinking the other day, and the Lord said, one of the problems is with people not surrendering is they don't believe my power. They have no idea about the power. We talk it, but they have no idea about the kinds of power I have. And he shared with me something that I want to share with you. If I had a bottle of calcium right here, inert like dirt, calcium. And if I had potassium, inert potassium, and if I had all the elements that we know in bottles sitting up here, that calcium that's in that bottle, when we open it and examine it, we can tell you about the atoms and the rings and all those kinds of things about it. In my body, there's calcium, and there's oxygen, and there's phosphorus, and all of those things. The same calcium is in here. It is no different than if I have it in this bottle. And yet, with all these inert elements that I have now inside of this organized system, and God himself has put in there a consciousness, you hear me? A consciousness. You can't explain it. Einstein couldn't explain it. No one can explain it. God says, I put my own life into it. Otherwise, it's inert. It's like dirt. But he says, I put consciousness into you, man. Makes me fear God. I fear him, but am not afraid of him. I want you to hear it. We're not playing with someone. We're talking about a God that I don't fully understand, nor do you. That's why I have problem with people who act like they got him in a hip pocket. I don't like someone to tell what he has to do this. You better be careful. You better be careful. But flip it now. Young people, my heart's with young people. Young people, just like that's true, no matter what your situation is, God is able to do exceedingly more than you ever acted, asked for, or thought. Whatever it is, God's able to do it. Whatever it is. When he showed me that the other night, I said, Lord, you're too much. That's why when they said he's awesome, he's an awesome God. Don't play with him. Don't play act with him. Be serious about it. I want to end by singing a song that some of you may not know, but I'm just as serious about it as I can be. One of the problems we have is we got people in the church here that watch everybody do some things. But meanwhile, God's calling you also. He's calling you. And I'm going to tell you this. Later on, I may preach a sermon on it. Just like these brothers and others have been ordained. All of you in here, if you said, Lord, I'll follow you, you were ordained. He ordained you into his army. You were ordained. And we'll hop over in Corinthians and talk about being an ambassador. You are an ambassador. And the way I walk and the way I talk, so my children, not only do I have to do that for my children, but these children become my children. And these children become my children. So I don't teach just my children. When the young people in the neighborhood was trying to learn something, if my kid was acting up and didn't want to learn it, I taught it anyway to the neighborhood kids because they're all our kids. That's what it's all about. I want to sing a song that got next to me when I came into the church. I don't know if we can sing it. Sister Lula may help us. I want to sing All I Surrender because I believe that's the problem in the churches today. We won't surrender. There are young people sitting here, know that God has granted you the ability to study, you won't study. God has granted you the understanding that something's wrong, you could do it. God has granted you a gift to help some other people learn. Otherwise, here's what's happening. Otherwise, a few people work themselves to a frazzle. Work themselves to a frazzle. I'm not making excuses. I'm going to do what I can as long as I'm living. But you know and I know that a man my age can't do as much as he wants to do. But there are replacements. There's always replacements in the army.